When it comes to health and social care, we significantly overuse the term revolution. Yeah, we all like to get very excited by some of the things that are coming along, but actually it goes as high as some of the national papers we have. For example, when the Digital Plan for Health and Social Care came out, the Hype Machine put it out like it was describing a revolution in care. At the time, I think I wrote, "This is not a revolution. It's just an evolution. It's just more stuff." What is a revolution? A revolution is when the current system is being replaced by something entirely new, driven by a new paradigm or a new way of thinking. Out there in the world, there is a digital revolution happening. It's called the internet. It's where 18-year-olds or younger can build empires and become millionaires because the whole of the internet has a sequence and series of creation tools that people can use to be able to solve problems, to share ideas, to make things better in the way that they see fit. That is the revolution that will come to the NHS. That is the thing that will come to social care. We are not building a plan for that. We're not even proposing or thinking that. And so the work that I've been doing over the last 5 years has been trying to propose exactly that and to run experiments in various frontline organizations using these dynamics. And I'd like to talk you through some of these dynamics I'm talking about and the shift that we would take that would actually create something that would resemble a positive revolution in the way that we deliver care using technology. Number one, from systems to ecosystems. So by this, what we mean is that rather than focus on putting a thing in that people can fill in forms and do stuff, we focus on creating things that enable. The obvious example that comes from this is, where is it? These smartphones. The success of iOS and Android was not because they tried to solve everybody's problems, but they created a accessible way for other people to be able to easily solve problems and to deploy it very quickly to a large number of places and areas. There are elements of this that we're seeing in the NHS app, but generally, other than that, particularly on the outgoing Director of Transformations watch, we saw quite a lot of over system focus and very little ecosystem focus. Aligned to this is from application, here's problems that we need to solve, to proliferation. Here are ways that we can try and help people to solve problems. And yes, of course, we can talk about what some of those problems are, but actually moving away from setting very specific high-level priorities. A particular example that comes to mind actually is around remote monitoring, right? We've framed remote monitoring in an application way of thinking. Virtual wards, we need to get people out of hospital into somewhere else so we can free up beds. We're going to create some virtual wards that do this. And yet actually, when we think about what remote monitoring offers, it offers the building blocks to be able to transform all the way upstream, day-to-day care, preventative, proactive, a whole number of different ways. But what we've done is we've taken an application viewed approach, possibly out of necessity, given we had a pandemic. And then we've used that to be able to solve a very specific problem. But we've become stuck in that very specific problem rather than being able to create the roots and shoots of proliferation. Empowerment over control. We want to shift from control to empowerment. And by this, what we mean is not having sign off and gateways and governance supporting this empowerment to happen. The biggest error, including and outside of transformation, outside of digital at the moment, is looking at the high levels of control mechanisms that have been brought in place around spending in ICS areas, particularly in relation to things that are happening in place. To borrow from a director of transformation from a big hospital who I interviewed a while ago, we talk like we want the Rebel Alliance, but everything we create is stormtroopers. And I think that's a really good analogy that has stuck in my mind. All of this stormtrooper analogy just means that we're going to get the same thing rather than getting really great ideas coming up. So moving from hoarding and privacy to openness and assets. I'll give you an example of this. Data, public data. As a taxpayer, I want that data. The Business Services Authority, NHS England, and the legacy of NHS Digital have loads of data that is really useful. Really straightforward data. So, for example, the mapping of ICSs to sub-ICSs to hospitals to what IT systems are in place in different areas, all of these different things are hidden and buried in all kinds of different stuff. They may say it's open, but nothing is being done to be able to see that that is the ingredients to help people to more successfully engage, particularly with health tech organizations. I've built a CRM for various clients I keep using, and I keep it up to date to be able to say, all right, this is these, so I can actually help provide some intelligence on areas. We should be giving that rather than hoarding it. And actually, we really I've spent many, many years, like over a decade, battling central bodies around data. And it's a real struggle to get anything. This is the stuff that people working for and with the NHS have to spend tens and tens and tens of hours doing. And when you add that up, that's an economic loss. That's a loss to productivity and to innovation itself. The next one is top-down hierarchies moving from towards the edges and networks. We need more networks. We need to be able to focus away on things coming up, being funded and prioritized and going down, quite similar to control and empowerment, but to actually solving problems at the edges in the places where the context happens. Care is a million different contexts for a million different people, and there's lots of different great ideas. And actually, with all of the tiers of things that I've described above, the best place to solve those problems are at the edges, at the proximity to those problems. And yet we tend to define the problems, well, largely in the political sphere at the moment. Finally, all of this, the internet, this whole world is a world of complexity. And complexity is not served by planning. When it comes to complexity, the often used saying that planning to fail is failing to plan is actually incorrect, which is why when we have things like experimentation, why we have things like agile and design thinking, which actually help us to be able to think through these. However, when it comes down to it, and I'm just writing an article actually around Lurtz's 5 laws of integration, and very much thinking around our need for certainty versus our ability to experiment and see what happens, how important and dominant that is. And actually, we really need to be able to give people permission to experiment and to fail, because out there in the world of digital on the internet, we have a live, organic ecosystem of failure and learning, failure and learning, failure and learning. And our cycle is 1,000 times slower. We need to speed up this cycle. And the only way that we can do it is to allow people to experiment and make sure that we use these networks and the edges and openness and assets and all of the things that I've described above to make it safe and actually celebrated that people try things and fail and we all learn from them. If we bring in these dynamics, then we will see a revolution in how care is done. And it will be true to the term of revolution, because it will change the power dynamics of the whole system from old power to a new power system. We're in a new power world. How long can we keep on trying to grind away in this old power system mentality before things come apart and crumble? We're already crumbling in front of us as it stands now.